biggest "this isn't what it looks like" moment? Story 1. Once when I was in 8th grade, I was hanging out at a new friend's place for the first time. We were playing chess, and I dropped a piece behind a telescope that was in a room in his house. I had to move the telescope a bit to get to the piece. An hour or so goes by and his mom comes in furious. I guess the neighbors had a daughter our age. When I moved the telescope, it was inadvertently pointing towards her bedroom window. This kid's mom saw that and thought I was corrupting her son by getting him to spy on the neighbor girl's bedroom. Simon lady, we just wanted to play some chess. Story 2. More of a "this isn't what it sounds like." A family we were close to had just moved to the US from India. They had a young daughter, like 5 years old, who was still learning English. One day she fell down the stairs while playing outside. She ran in crying and saying, "The stairs hit me." Once she calmed down, her dad corrected her and said, "No, you mean to say I fell down the stairs?" A few days later, my dad was showing them the grocery store. In the checkout line, the cashier saw the girl's bruised up legs and asked what happened. The daughter responded with, "What did you tell me to say, Dad?" "Oh, right, I fell down the stairs." He had a fun time explaining that to the police. Story 3. A coworker that I ran into at a wedding got really drunk and tried to recruit me into helping him terminate his ex-girlfriend and her new beau, who were also coworkers of mine. His whole plan was for me to inquire the next day at work whether they would be at a party later in the week, and to text him if they were so he could ambush them when they tried to leave. Dude went into creepy detail about how he was going to them in the knees first so they'd have to beg for their lives from the ground. I played along like, sure, whatever man, and gave him some space. The next day at work, I reported the incident to HR and called the police. I work for a Fortune 100 company, so our corporate security called me at my desk and asked me to go into a private room with my cell and call them back so we could discuss to help them assess the threat level to the office. There was only one private room in that office, a long conference room with big windows and a long table. The lights were out, but the windows provided plenty of light. I noticed an open laptop on the conference table, but it wasn't on, and since the lights were out, I didn't think much of it. I was on the phone with corporate security for maybe 10 minutes and the department head, this super butch woman who acts like Jane Lynch, walks in with the head of an even larger debt. They had been using the room for a meeting and had stepped away to do something, and they both walked in to find me huddled in the corner on my cell phone, with the lights out, instead of at my desk taking phone calls. She had always hated me, so I knew it was pointless, but I managed to get out, "Sorry, I'm on the phone with corporate security," and she barked, "I don't care. Leave." Never got an apology or anything even after the dude was fired, and it seemed to only increase her hatred for me. No good deeds goes unpunished, I guess. Story 4. I used to take my kids to different playgrounds as they were growing up. Oftentimes I'd be out there with them, chasing them, being the random monster dragon antagonist while they run away and then eventually turn around and chase me back. Inevitably, since the rest of the parents were on their iPhones or doing anything but interacting with their kids, I'd end up with a collection who wanted to join in the fun. It was all going well until they said they wanted to play Minecraft. So as a group of kids suddenly scatter from where I am standing, yelling, "Ah! Run away from the creeper! Ah!" I look up to see a line of parents suddenly jostled back into consciousness with absolutely no friggin' context whatsoever. Story 5. I sprained my ankle quite badly in high school, but didn't want to miss out on the final tournament as I was a senior. Since we were flying to our destination, my doctor prescribed me epinephrine shots to avoid getting an embolism. Not sure of the English term, which I would have to inject in my belly once a day until the return flight. We were hosted in pairs by local families of athletes, while the coaches stayed in a hotel. One day, just as we were about to leave for the games, I remembered that I'd forgotten to take my in the morning, so I ran back to the room, rummaged around in my bag, fetched the needle, and lifted my shirt. Right at that moment, the mother also walks back upstairs to grab her purse or something, and we made eye contact through the open door, her looking at me as I was injecting the epinephrine. It only took 2 seconds, but it felt like a minute, and I could read all the thoughts going around in her head, portrayed by the variety of facial expressions that she was going through. "This is not what it looks like, I can explain." Luckily, I had the prescription, and the coaches knew, so they were able to explain why a 17-year-old foreigner was injecting stuff in his body under her roof. Edit. As the kind folks in the comments have pointed out, it sounds like I have confused the candy name. This happened more than 10 years ago and I live in Europe, so candy names are often different from their North American equivalents. Story 6. Also more of a "this isn't what it sounds like." I was a weird person in high school, and my friends were equally weird. We had no boundaries. My friend and I were walking to class, and were discussing the Jackass clip where they had a gas mask and tube assembly, where one person wore the mask and the other farted into the tube. We thought this sounded like a pretty cool idea and were considering trying this out. As we walked around the corner, I said to him, "I'll suck yours if you'd suck mine." Could the hot girl conveniently rounding the corner at that precise moment? Story 7. Not what it looks like, but rather a not what it sounds like. My mom was physically disabled, severe rheumatoid arthritis in her whole body. She was an excellent mom and fought through pain I can't comprehend every day to get my brother and me to school, and in general have a normal life. She was a stay-at-home mom. My dad worked. Growing up like that, you initially don't know that anything you have is unusual because it's how your life is. It's only when you're exposed to a difference that you realize that what you know isn't how things are for everyone. My younger brother must have had one of these moments because one day over the summer while we were eating lunch, he asked me why our mom walked differently. I was pretty young, maybe 10 or so, but I understood well enough to give him a basic understanding of why she was different. We'd just finished this discussion when my mom comes storming in, furious and hurt, because she'd kinda sorta heard us through the wall. The master bathroom shared a wall with the kitchen, and she thought we were making fun of her condition. We get sent to our rooms before either of us can explain, and get stuck there for most of the rest of the day. Fortunately, I was a generally trustworthy kid, and I was able to explain what the conversation really was when I was finally called back to apologize. I loved my mom, and felt awful that she'd think I'd make fun of her for being different. Definitely my biggest "you're misunderstanding me" moment. Story 8. My best friend of 15 years, Jay, is a guy, and with me being a girl, we have always endured people assuming we have close relationship. Spoiler, we don't. Anyways, we are camping with a few friends and got supremely drunk. One of my girlfriends, M, has taken off into the woods after a fight with her boyfriend, and the four of us are trying to find her. At this point, I'm so full of tequila I know I'm about to puke, so I ask my best friend to hold my hair back. We are in complete darkness. I'm on all fours puking. He's awkwardly standing in front of me, kind of crouched down because he's a foot taller than me and holding all my hair up while I heave. I know how it looked, but on my life I was getting sick. At this exact moment, M runs out of the woods, flashlight directly on us and screams, "Holy cow, she's blowing him!" I'm legit puking so hard I don't even hear her. By the time we got back to the campfire, M had told everyone else what she saw. She's still adamant to this day that she knows what she saw. Edit. Wow, everyone got the wrong idea of M completely. She's really not a bad person. Dramatic. Oh God. Yes, but a bad person, no. We had a metric fudge ton of tequila that night. No one was thinking rationally. As for Jay, he's not in the friend zone, you sad dads. It's possible to love someone, enjoy their company and emotional support, without wanting or needing to put your genitalia into their assorted body cavities. Story 9. My wife and I used to hide money in her underwear drawer so our kids won't be digging through it because they think it's gross. One morning, I was getting dressed and wanted to get some money before I forget. So I was digging through her underwear when my 5-year-old son saw me. He asked what I was doing, and naturally, I can't tell him that I needed money, so I had to say something like that I was cleaning things up. Pretty sure he didn't believe me and thought I was looking for a pair to wear. Story 10. My wife got spiked one night out. Got a call from her to get her and her mate. Went into town to find her lying in a gutter. So I had to drag a limp body into the back of my car with people looking on, like I'm kidnapping my wife while her mate staggered around. A fair few dodgy looks I got. Still a bit of puking and some sleep helped. Bloody love that girl, not so much the with pills. Story 11. Living with my roommate, and I had put washing in the machine the night before. When I got home from work, I remembered the washing, opened up the machine and grabbed an item of clothing and smelt it to see if it had that "I dried on my own so FKU" smell. But as I did it, I saw my roommate staring at me in shock. Apparently, he had thrown some of his stuff in with mine, including his underwear, the underwear I was sniffing. He moved out shortly after. Story 12. Back in high school, I was a photographer at a summer camp. One time at the end of a day, as kids were being picked up by their parents, one girl saw me and said to her mother, "Mom, that's the man who took pictures of me." That mother spun around so fast. Fortunately, when she instantly realized I was the camp photographer, we both exchanged an awkward, nervous smile and laugh. But boy, when I heard that girl say that, my heart skipped a beat. Talk about awkward. Story 13. My new neighbor told me about a house fire in his old neighborhood. It was fall, and he and his family were roasting marshmallows in their fireplace when they heard the fire truck siren. They ran outside and saw the emergency vehicles a few houses down in front of their neighbor's house. They ran down the street toward the crowd. As they stood with the crowd watching the house burn, they were getting nasty looks. It was then he realized they were still holding the roasting sticks with marshmallows on them. Edit. Jethro Bite suggests my neighbor may have lied about the origin of this story. It's certainly possible. Whether it involves my neighbor or not, it's still a good story. Story 14. I have two. They both take a bit of explaining, So forgive me for a long comment. Adjusting my brother's package. This one is pretty ridiculous on its own, but I inadvertently made it much worse. A few years back, I went down south to visit my older brother for a St. Patty's Day bar crawl, where you get on a bus and visit 10 bars in 10 hours. About 2 hours into the event, my brother thought it would be funny to stick a rolled-up t-shirt down one of his pant legs to emulate a giant banana. It looked really weird, so I put my drink down and walked over to adjust it to make it appear more phallic. So I'm bent down, squeezing it and smoothing it out while he just stood there with his pelvis thrust forward to make it easier on me. A woman bartender happened to come out of a back room and walk past us while it was happening. She stopped and looked at us while I was just fondling away. When I noticed she was staring, the words that came out of my mouth were, "No, no, it's okay, he's my brother." Her eyes went wide and she turned around and walked away. That was pretty embarrassing, but it's fun to look back and laugh about it. Dr. Banana Delicious. A couple of years ago, I worked at a stuffy banking software company as a systems administrator. A few of my co-workers were running out to the local sub shop to get lunch and asked me if I wanted to come along. I said yes, but I wanted to go out to the data center floor and ask Pappy, nickname for an older gentleman on our team, if he wanted me to bring something back for him. As he gave me his order, I typed it into a text message and sent it to myself. It arrived immediately, but I didn't acknowledge it, so it just stayed on my lock screen. While we're standing in line at the sub shop, my colleague turns to me and asks, "What did Pappy want?" Without thinking, I hold up my phone and show him Pappy's order. He reads it, gives a very subtle head nod, then quietly turns to face forward in line. Once it's finally my turn to put in my and Pappy's orders, I look down at my phone to read it off and realize that I had forgotten that I put my own name into my phone as Dr. Banana Delicious. So when my coworker read the order on my phone, he understandably thought Pappy had texted it to me and that I have him in my phone as Dr. Banana Delicious. I was mortified, but when I finally noticed this egregious error, too much time had passed by for me to comfortably explain it, especially since my coworker didn't even mention it. So I would have had to be the one to bring it up. I never ended up explaining myself. Story 15. Went to a friend's house, and since it was an after-party for a play, in high school, on a Friday, of course there was beer, and we were all underage. I wasn't drinking, but a buddy of mine needed to go home, so I dropped him off and headed back. As I got out of the car when I got back, I noticed it was quiet, but it's a huge house, like 4,000 to 5,000 square feet, and I figured they were in the basement doing something quieter and I couldn't hear them. Front door locked. Okay, I was just here 15 minutes ago. Head to back door, unlocked. Awesome. Now the entire house was beeping as if someone was breaking in. Holy fudge, that's this house right here. Oh fudge, that's me. Run into basement, nobody there. Upstairs, nobody there. Kitchen, lights off. Start to hear the house phone ring, but I don't answer and I know it's too late. Call friend, no answer. Call another friend, no answer. See beer cans everywhere, so I clean them up and hide them. Hid the brownies they had, checked around the house one more time for stuff, and waited for my inevitable demise. Friends call me back as I'm outside freaking the hell out, and they start to rush home. Long story short, the cops showed up with 2 dogs and guns pointed at me, and I get slammed to the ground and handcuffed. Friends arrived at home and explained situation just in time before I'm hauled off. They decided to run out to eat at the exact convenient time I left, never told me, and left the bank door unlocked with the house alarm armed. That was a hell of a night. Edit. Typing on mobile will correct minor things later. Edit 2. Someone is saying they don't believe me, so here is the house that it happened at. I've left out identifying details of where this is located and who it is. Edit 3. Removed picture was already me about putting it up, but I think I proved my point to the doubt. Story 16. I worked at a GameStop one Christmas as a seasonal employee. This was when the GBA was current. I literally had a Game Boy Advance and some cartridges zipped up in my coat pocket. Leaving on my first day, they informed me they need to do a pocket check to make sure I didn't steal anything. So I have to dump out this handful of loose cartridges that actually were mine. Story 17. My brother and I got into a fist fight. He was right, I was wrong. And he punched me in the mouth. I was bleeding pretty good and kept spitting blood on him for some reason. He went into the condo vacation, and my mom freaked out because he had blood all over him. It went a little like this, Mom. OMG, you're covered in blood. Brother, calm down, it isn't my blood. OMFG, whose blood? Is it what did you do? Brother. Mom. It's fine, it's just Tyler's blood. Mom. OMFG, did you flipping? Terminate him? Where is Tyler? I walked in shortly after alive and well. The dispute between my brother and I was settled. BTW. Story 18. When I was 16, I was having close relationship with my girlfriend. There was just the 2 of us in my house. We were doing it on a chair in the spare room where the PC was. Suddenly, my 13-year-old sister came through the front door and ran up the stairs shouting my name. My girlfriend leapt up off of me and I dove towards the door to stop my sister running in the room. She thought I was alone and wanking over prohibited photos on PC. My girlfriend was mortified, so even though it wasn't what it looked like, I had to pretend it was. Story 19. This is one of my mom's absolute favorite stories to tell. My partner and I were in a kind of long-distance relationship at this point, high schoolers living. They were 40 minutes apart and they would occasionally drive up after school to come see me. On this particular day, my mom came home from work and was concerned with the lack of sound. I hear her calling my name as she comes closer. She eventually gets to my closed bedroom door, not wanting to see what I'm sure every parent would expect by this point. She swings it open and finds my partner and I putting together our brand new Millennium Falcon, full size for action figures, that we had just purchased from Toys R Us. My dog kept stepping on the pieces and messing things up in his dopiness, so we closed the door. After that, she never worried about us being alone. Honestly think this might be the moment where my mom decided she wanted to adopt my partner. Sometimes, I'm not sure who she loves more. Story 20. Let me preface by saying that I was the first graduate student in a brand new lab, so for a while it was just my professor, our lab manager, and myself working in the lab while everything was getting set up. If anyone has ever helped set up a lab, you know that sales reps are constantly coming in and out, trying to make an easy commission grab on the big equipment that labs buy with their startup fund. While I was the only student in the lab, I was trying to put together an outreach module where we would go to a 5th grade class and have them build a microscope out of Legos using a 3D printed Lego lens adapter. This is what we were going to have them build. At some point, I'm sitting in lab building this microscope to see how long it would take for kids. Both my professor and the lab manager are gone buying stuff from a company that had gone out of business when a rep walks in, and I'm just sitting at my bench playing with Legos. She asked if the manager or my professor were around, because they have some sweet discounts on pipette tips or something like that, and I have to tell her that they're both out and I could help her. At that point, she just looks at me like, seriously, your bosses are gone and you decide to sit here and play with Legos instead of work? This is what I have to deal with. We sit in silence for a minute before she shakes her head and says that she'll just try back later. I assume my lab now has a reputation at that company as having a grad student that plays with Legos instead of working when nobody is looking. Story 21. Ooh, I have another. She playfully referred to herself as a hooker to her friends. In kindergarten, my teacher gave us a project where we talked about what jobs our parents did. I cheerfully told the entire class and teacher that my mom was a hooker. The principal called my mom in for a meeting, where she had to explain to the administration that she did not sleep with people for money. Story 22. So I used to get really bad nosebleeds. This particular year, they were especially bad. I knew that I had to get my nose cauterized, but I was lazy and kept putting it off. One day, I'm out to breakfast with my wife and my nose starts gushing blood. It's one of the worst ones I've ever had. I run to the bathroom and I'm just trying to get it under control, but there's blood everywhere. It's on my clothes, all over my face, all over the toilet. I sneeze, and now it's all over the walls, too. I have to text my wife and tell her to come help me. Luckily, she's used to this and isn't fazed by the Rambo-level war zone I had turned that bathroom stall into. She gets me cleaned up, but not before taking a photo of the blood-splattered crime scene to use as evidence the next time I try arguing that I don't have a problem. Flash forward to that afternoon. We're at the mall with my mom shopping for boots. We go up to the register and my wife opens her camera roll to find the coupon she had taken a screenshot of. She hands her phone to the cashier, a sweet, bubbly girl of about 17. The girl's eyes widen with terror and all the color drains from her face immediately. She slowly hands the phone back to my wife and whispers the only 2 words she can muster. It's swiped. Story 23. I wanted white hair. Just thought it would be cool. I went on bleaching mission like you wouldn't believe. Finally got a hairdresser to sell me some highly concentrated cow. Friend of mine comes over as I'm about to start this disaster and decides to help. She starts combing the mix through my hair. Even though it's belched to death already, the ringlets start flinging cow all over the bathroom and her shirt, so she take that off bleach mix end up all over her chest. While I'm in the shower rinsing by head off, she comes barging cause her ball are on fire. Post-shower, we're drying off in the living room, and that's when her sister walks in, us but wet, laughing a bit, and for all intents and purposes looking like we just got done boning. Story 24. My best friend, we're both female, stayed over one night for a sleepover, and at some point we were underneath the bed covers pretending it was a tent and telling each other scary stories. My mom walked in on us while I was moaning and pretending to be a ghost, and my friend was giggling at the horrible job I was doing. She turned on the light and had a horrified look on her face that I realized later was because she fearful of me becoming a sapphic. She had a weird close relationship talk with us telling us it was not right to touch each other in our pee-pee or poo-poo places until we had husbands later in life. We were 7 years old and weren't even into boys or girls yet for that matter, so we were utterly confused about why anyone would want to touch another person's poo or pee places because that was gross, obviously. Edit. English was my mom's second language, so she often had trouble explaining things. Normally, she would use Tagalog Filipino terms like AA is pek-pek, balls are dete, and titi refers to the banana, which would confuse us since titty means boob ball in American English slang. When she would try to pronounce banana, it would sound like pennies. Since my friend was there, though, she was trying to explain in English she thought we both would understand. Anyway, welcome to my childhood.